$913. That's the average monthly payment for a new truck in the United States. If you were to buy it in cash, it'd be over $60,000. Cars aren't much better, $735 a month or $48,000 in cash. But what if I told you there was a brand new truck you could get for only $5,000, 12 times less than this one? A comparable sized truck bed and better gas mileage at almost 50 miles per gallon on the highway. The vehicle I'm talking about is the Japanese Kei Truck. The only problem? The US government wants to ban it, and they already have. As of 2024, Kei Trucks are illegal in 16 states. In 5 states, they're restricted to only being used for farm purposes or in places with local laws that permit it. 4 states have no recorded laws, leaving the rest of the United States deeming Kei Trucks as legal vehicles. If you live in one of these green states, then technically you could buy one, but there's another catch. In most of these states, Kei Trucks aren't permitted on the highway, which negates their outstanding gas mileage on the interstate. In Florida and Illinois, 2 states that have opposite political agendas, Kei Trucks can only be driven at a top speed of 35 miles per hour. States like North Dakota up the ante and increase their top speed allowed to 55 miles per hour. But states like Texas go as far as only allowing Kei Trucks 25 years or older to be street legal. So why are Kei Trucks so restricted in the US? This is the million-dollar question that I wanted to find out, and the answer is even worse than you can imagine. Despite trucks being super expensive, Americans are still buying them. In fact, out of the 25 best-selling vehicles of last year, pickup trucks make up the top 3 spots, with the Ford F-Series taking the crown as the best-selling vehicle in America, and it's on pace to repeat its dominance in 2024. The American pickup truck has evolved into a status symbol with a cult following, an almost symbol of freedom. This is partly due to great marketing from the auto industry, but pickup trucks are also extremely popular because of their unique design. A design that allows their owners to haul things that they otherwise couldn't with a regular vehicle. Most pickup truck owners aren't hauling loads in their truck beds every time they drive their vehicle, but it's this freedom of choice that the American auto industry has been tapping into ever since Henry Ford released the market's first pickup truck back in 1925. And as the years of our history went by, Japan would find themselves in a position to tap into the same idea. The year is 1949, and Japan is struggling from the effects of the Second World War that ended only 4 years ago. 2 atomic bombs were dropped on cities Hiroshima and Nagasaki, ending the lives of hundreds of thousands of people and decimating infrastructure. They have limited resources and are enduring economic constraints imposed on them by the United States. Japan was out of options and needed a way to rebuild their economy. In this case, restriction would breed innovation. The Japanese government would come up with a brand new regulation for vehicles known as Keiji Dosha. It translates to light vehicle and acted as a workaround to the constraints set on them to stunt the development of transportation systems. Keiji Dosha was a new class of vehicles, smaller and lighter, used less steel, were cheaper to manufacture, and promoted better fuel efficiency to meet these constraints. Early adoption of this new vehicle class would come in the form of Sanrin, 3-wheeled trucks based on 3-wheeled motorcycles with small load carrying areas that were popular in Japan during World War II. And with it, Japan's economy started to rebuild. They now had the necessary means of transportation for goods and trade at an efficient cost. There was hope from the idea of Keiji Dosha, an idea that came from the lasting effects of war. Keiji Dosha would eventually evolve into Kei-Tora, or Kei Truck for short, meaning light truck. The first Kei Truck was the Kurigane Baby, released in 1959, and would popularize the cab-over design now found in Kei Trucks today. Another early Kei Truck was the Subaru Sambar, which is still in production today. The Honda T360 from 1963 was Honda's first vehicle, and more popular Kei Trucks like the Suzuki Carry and Daihatsu Hi-Jet would come to fruition over the years. And the reason is simple. Kei Trucks are much more affordable than regular vehicles. A new base two-wheel drive model can cost as low as 700,000 yen, which is only about $5,000 USD. It's mainly because of the restrictions set by Keiji Dosha, which currently state that Kei trucks can be no more than 3.4 meters long and 1.48 meters wide, or 11.2 feet long and 4.9 feet wide. Of course, this comes with its limitations, like having less horsepower and only 2 seats with not a lot of room inside. But at the same time, Kei trucks are very good on gas and can average almost 50 miles per gallon on the highway and sit at the 30 to 40 range in the city. They also have truck beds that are essentially the same size as this brand new 2024 Ford F-150, which has a standard bed size of 6.5 feet with a load capacity of 1,700 pounds, while Kei trucks usually have a bed size of 6 feet with a load capacity of 770 pounds. The starting MSRP for this Ford F-150 is almost $40,000, which is 8 times more than the base model Kei truck in 2024. The same size bed with a less load capacity for 800% less. And because of their affordability, Kei trucks have spread throughout Asia, being used in industries like agriculture, fisheries, construction, and even for firefighting. But Kei trucks aren't perfect. Although they've seen a massive rise in popularity recently because of social media, Kei trucks were originally designed to be driven at only 50 miles per hour, and older models that are legal to be imported in the US lack airbags and proper anti-locking brake systems for safety, meaning these mini trucks are more akin to driving a motorcycle on the highway, making a possible wreck all the more dangerous. For businesses that need to make deliveries in large congested cities like Tokyo or New York, they're practical and in a league of their own. For commuters traveling to work on the highway in the US, they may not make the most sense given these innate flaws. However, I should note some newer models do have airbags and ABS systems in place and are much safer than their 25-year-old counterparts. But still, the question remains: if Kei trucks are so affordable and are so widely used throughout Japan and other parts of Asia, with newer models having more safety features, then why haven't they seen more of a mass adoption in the United States and have instead been met with major restrictions and have been deemed illegal in 16 states? And that's when I stumbled upon something that sent me down a rabbit hole that I wasn't supposed to be looking at. It's 1987, and the US auto industry is facing increased foreign opposition. And at the same time, Kei trucks were rising in popularity in Asia, partly due to affordable vehicles such as the Daihatsu Hijet. The US market was wide open, or so it was. Bob Whitaker, a Republican House representative of Kansas, would come forward to sponsor a law called the Imported Vehicle Safety Compliance Act of 1988. This law would serve as a new outline for safety standards on vehicles. It was a win for consumers in terms of being safe on the highways at the time, but the law would also ban the sale of foreign vehicles that did not meet these safety standards. And Kei trucks were one class of vehicles that would be outlawed because of it, due to not meeting the safety standards set by this new law that would be passed in 1988. But there was one catch. The law also stated that foreign vehicles 25 years or older could be deemed as classic vehicles and could then be imported and sold to vintage car enthusiasts. So in a way, Kei trucks were still legal if you had an older model, but also illegal if they were a brand new model, since they did not meet these safety standards. Bob Whitaker was most likely lobbied by US auto companies like Ford, since at the time, Japanese cars were beginning to be much more reliable. And if cheaper alternatives like Kei trucks or even Kei cars that were rising in popularity were available, it could mean the end of the US auto industry itself. So instead of fully reinventing themselves to fight fire with fire, the US auto industry would choose to play dirty and fight this potential threat with government control at its side. And it was a win-win for already established foreign manufacturers in a way as well. They would keep creating vehicles that matched these new standards and that were on par with US vehicles in terms of design and efficiency. In fact, a year after, in 1989, the Honda Accord would become the best-selling car in America, the first time a foreign passenger car had claimed the title, with the American-made Ford Taurus coming closely behind it. A win-win. Of course, I can't fully prove that Bob Whitaker was lobbied by companies like Ford, because public lobbying records in the United States, unfortunately, don't go back that far. But they do go back to more recent times, and it was only a matter of time before I'd find out the truth. In 2008, following the election of Barack Obama, new regulations would be imposed by the EPA to reduce emissions in a fight against climate change. Most people would agree that less pollution is a net positive, but these regulations came with a cost. The EPA went ahead and decided to test motor vehicles in the US, and found that the vast majority of Kei trucks that were inspected would be deemed illegal because they lacked a required EPA-issued certificate of conformity with Clean Air Act emission standards. These new regulations did not, however, prohibit the importation of Kei trucks, but they would now require certification and a speed limiter to be installed on them before they were imported. Hence why many states now require Kei trucks to only be driven on roads with specific speed limits. 25-year-old Kei trucks could still be imported and then registered and titled without issue, since the law in 1988 that was established. But then, in 2014, New York passed a law that would shift things even more against Kei trucks. Section 400-A of New York State Vehicle and Traffic Law states, "The Commissioner may refuse to register any vehicle or class of vehicles for use on the public highways, where he determines that the characteristics of such vehicle or class of vehicles make such vehicle or vehicles unsafe for highway operation." That's a mouthful, but essentially this law would give the state the absolute power to ban any vehicle of their choosing, if it did not meet the required standards of the state of New York. Kei trucks ended up fitting this description perfectly, and have been deemed illegal in New York since they do not meet these safety standards that have been established there. They cannot be titled or registered in the state, regardless of them being 25 years or older. This law was pushed and passed by the New York State Senate. The senators in power at the time were Chuck Schumer and Kirsten Gillibrand, and they are both still in power. And I wanted to know, was there an agenda being played here? What would be the point of completely banning these vehicles even though they were already banned from being imported unless they were 25 years or older? And that's when I stumbled upon Senator Gillibrand's lobbying records. In 2012 and 2014, Gillibrand accepted large sums of money from the global law firm Davis & Polk. At the surface level, it seemed like nothing. I saw no contributions from major auto companies, which would have been an immediate red flag. But then I went to Davis & Polk's website and looked at their capabilities section. Under that section, I came across transportation and logistics. Here, it states that Davis & Polk work with the automotive industry, stating, "They seek our assistance in transformative mergers and acquisitions, joint ventures, and strategic alliance," and so on. And under their list of notable clients, there it was, Ford. Whether or not Davis & Polk had a say in passing Section 400-A that would effectively ban Kei trucks in the state of New York is a question that remains. The dots are there and they can be connected, but it can't be fully proven. Despite this 2014 law would go on to set a precedent for other states to ban Kei trucks. The state of Rhode Island has began asking owners of Kei trucks to turn in their registration for their vehicles, claiming that Kei trucks are unsafe to be driven at all on any public roads. People who had owned these vehicles for years are now being forced to give them up, and other states have followed in banning them completely, like Pennsylvania, Virginia, and Georgia, to name a few. But after looking at everything that was on the table, I finally realized what was going on. It was an illusion. Since its inception, the United States has embraced capitalism, and with it have built an empire that essentially runs the world and dictates every country's economy in some way. The presence is unmatched, and a common belief of capitalism is the idea of a free market, where the forces of supply and demand regulate the production, labor, and marketplace with little to no government interference. In this system, private businesses own and control the factors of production. And it's true, anyone in the United States who is a legal citizen can start a business. There's this idea of the land of the free, a place where you can build something from scratch and live out the American dream that so many people have come to know. But in the United States, something called lobbying exists, where private corporations are allowed to pay politicians money in return for things like favors and pushing laws that in turn benefit their mega corporations. If foreign competition is a risk to the economy, then the government will act and stop the market from being free. Of course, this benefits American companies and keeps the US machine afloat, but at the same time, hurts US consumers by not allowing choice. It's the free market illusion. K-trucks are just one example, as recently Chinese manufactured cars have been outlawed in the US. And if you simply look into history, you can see the US market is not a free market given that things like lobbying exist. But don't get me wrong, at the time of the law that was passed in 1988 that demanded vehicles have better safety standards, K-trucks lacked features that made them unsafe for consumers. And given their size and dimensions, it makes sense that some states do have certain rules and regulations in place to further prevent fatal accidents from happening. But what doesn't make sense is completely banning these vehicles in 16 states and counting, and also banning the sale of brand new K-trucks, while motorcycles and other unsafe vehicles don't have the same rules and regulations being applied to them. And mini trucks are still well and alive in Asia. They're still in production. In 2022, the Daihatsu Hijet sold around 150,000 units in Japan alone, making it one of the best years it's ever had in terms of sales. And its base two-wheel drive model only costs $11,800, with the four-wheel drive model costing $13,800, and it's much cheaper for used models. The K-truck market is flourishing in Asia, and it doesn't seem to be slowing down. On the other hand, in the US, the K-truck market can exist due to government intervention. But what if companies like Ford released vehicles that were similar? In fact, they could do so and probably get away with it and change the safety standard laws with lobbying. If American auto countries were to produce K-trucks in the US, I'm sure some consumers would opt to buy them due to their cheaper prices. Of course, these types of vehicles still have their downsides, but the truth is that these companies would be shooting themselves in the foot. US and foreign car companies understand that the US car market is a gold mine. Good public transportation is scarce here in most areas, and population density isn't like it is in Asia, meaning that most people have to drive a vehicle to commute to work. So if car companies were to make K-truck-like vehicles, ones that were safer and had more features that US consumers have grown accustomed to, then this would ultimately hurt the US economy. Revenues would be lower, and less tax dollars would be collected by the government. The corporations understand this, and so do the politicians. It's for this reason that sadly, K-trucks may never fully make their way over to the United States. It's the illusion of the free market. But there was one last thing. I still wanted to imagine a world where K-trucks were mainstream here in America. What would that look like? In Tokyo, Japan, the roads and streets are much more congested. Speed limits are relatively lower due to the nature of design. In the US, it's a different story, as we previously discussed. Cities are still congested, but highways reign supreme, as bullet trains and public transportation aren't mainstream. K-trucks make sense in places like Japan for this reason. They're smaller and more fuel efficient in the city than most vehicles are today. And they make parking much more feasible by saving space. Despite all this, would they still make sense in the US if they were legal? I think they would. They may not make sense for the average commuter who is traveling in and out of the city, but I do think they make sense for businesses and people who live in cities and need another form of transportation that allows for hauling cargo. Of course, things like cargo vans still exist, but K-trucks would be a cheaper alternative. And with newer models that have better safety features like airbags and ABS braking systems, they would make sense. Municipalities would also benefit in the form of saving money on vehicle costs. I'm sure you know as well as I do that cities need vehicles for things like fixing roads and sewer systems. Arming city workers with an army of Kei trucks would reduce costs and increase fuel efficiency and the reliable vehicles, with even 25-year-old models still running perfectly fine, a true testament to Japanese ingenuity. Delivery trucks for packages, food, and other services may also benefit in terms of saving money. I don't think Kei trucks would reign supreme if they were allowed in the US this way. But I do think they'd give people more options, and having safety measures and regulations would still be necessary. Maybe Kei trucks would be more of a style of vehicle you'd really only see in the city or on farms. They're pretty practical in my opinion, as long as they're being used in a safe manner. And let me be clear, I think government regulation is necessary, because if it was up to corporations to decide them for us, then it'd be a net negative for society. But at the same time, companies still have the power to decide our regulations with their lobbying dollars, which isn't exactly a good thing. Will Kei trucks ever be legal here? Will they eventually be fully banned in every state here in the US? I don't know the answer to that, but if it were to happen, then it'd be taking the freedom of choice away from the consumer. Keiji Dosha, the class of vehicles that only came to see the light of day because of the United States during the events of a post-World War II era, would never come to fully exist in the United States. A sort of cruel parallel that Keiji Dosha has endured since its inception. One more thing that I do want to mention before this video ends is that Kei trucks are still able to be purchased in the US. And even in states where they're deemed illegal, sometimes you can still get special licenses and tags to use them, or just use them for private use. So if you ever are looking to buy one, just do your research first. And for those of you who are still here, I just want to thank you for watching this video to the end. These documentary style videos take a lot of effort and time to handcraft. So if you want to see more videos like this one, then make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. You'll be supporting not only this channel, but also future documentary style videos. And don't worry, I've got more on the way. See you next time.